What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check here with you, the October edition of Ask the Phoenix. Going to do a little bit of house cleaning before I start. You guys know November is next month. Put your questions down in the box below if you want to be in the November Q&A. As usual, taking December off, so the questions you leave on the next Q&A will be answered in January. That's probably going to carry over into next year. Ask the Phoenix next year is probably going to transition to being an every other month thing. Doesn't mean you guys aren't great. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate the hell out of all you guys tossing your questions down in the box below and making this the most interactive series on this channel. Now, going to these questions here. Couple little incidences with YouTube over the past 2 weeks or so. So I lost a couple questions, but that does not mean that you guys didn't come back in droves and help me replenish the questions for this month's Q&A. As I said, if you're watching this for the first time, you haven't seen this series before, this is my monthly series. You put your questions down in the box below. Before the 25th of the following month, they will be answered in that month's Q&A, and I've always said if I can't do anything else on this channel, this is the one series, probably along with Tackle, that will stay even if everything else goes out the window. So, for starters, Official K13 says, where do you want WrestleMania 34 to be? Well, selfishly, I'd love WrestleMania 34 to be in Toronto, but we do not have a venue large enough to house what WWE wants WrestleMania to be, what was the name of the place it was at last year? We don't have the big stadiums, is what I'm saying. We have the Air Canada Centre, and we have the Rogers Centre, as most of you guys know as the Sky Dome, but we simply do not have a venue big enough to have it. I would love to have it in Toronto so that I could go. Historically, again, not big enough for WrestleMania. I'd love to see it back at Madison Square Garden for the historical aspect of it, but that's not nearly the crowd that Vince McMahon would like to see. So, I don't know. Where they had it last year was good. I don't really have a preference, is what I'm coming around to. If you could bring one wrestler from TNA to WWE, who would it be? I would have NXT take a second stab with James Storm, because especially now with many, many other people that he worked with in TNA, he could put on some great matches, bring some feuds over from TNA, like a Samoa Joe, like a Bobby Roode, like an Eric Young, AJ Styles once he gets to the main roster, etc. James Storm. Obviously, I would love them to bring back the Hardy Boys, the Broken Matt and Brother Nero gimmick, see how that could fly in WWE. I think it could be good. EC3 would be interesting, I guess, because they really fucked up with him in the original version of NXT when he was Derek Bateman and didn't do anything. For WWE to have to go back to him and say, hey, do you want to come back now that you've, made yourself into something that wasn't completely retarded, would be funny as well. Madison Rayne, Velvet Sky, Gail Kim, even though I know that's a pipe dream, Gail Kim versus Asuka is something we need to see at some point somewhere, even if it's not in the WWE. Number 3, should WWE sign James Ellsworth? And I know at least half the crowd down in the box below is laughing their asses off at me. I say go ahead and hire him. Go ahead and hire him and let him get his ass kicked constantly. Let him be the Santino. Well, let him be what Santino Marella should have been, because Santino Marella was more than he should have been in his run, in my personal opinion. James Ellsworth, bring him in, let him get his ass kicked. Stop having him beat the world champion, though. Maybe give him a chin. I don't know. Who are your 5 favorite YouTubers? Well, this rotates out. Always going to say Wrestling Jesus. General Jerry. JD from New York. OK Fabe. And my cohorts from Tackle over on the Black Cat Feline channel. Also, I will say go check out the Bear Hug It Out podcast, at Bear Hug It Out on Twitter. What inspired you to start YouTube? I really don't have a super inspiring story, other than the fact that about 6 years ago was the period of time where everybody else around here, yes, Canada has a very strange and unique pro wrestling following, but a lot of them dipped off. A lot of them went to other things. TNA was starting to become a thing, UFC was rising in popularity, and I literally ran out of people to talk to in the GTA, so started watching various, more official reviews, such and such magazine reviews, such and such pay-per-view, stumbled upon, and I will always give the credit, even though the guy's become a little bit of a pompous ass these days, I will always give the credit to Mark Pearson. He was the first sort of YWC shooter that I subscribed to. I remember going and watching his videos. From him, I learned about Nutty Rock Chick. From her, I learned about Hannah Banana Bob, and it went on down the line from there. Met Deluxe Man in the Four Horsemen of the YWC, and those of you who have been with me for a long time know how that story went. But ultimately, there isn't really an inspiring story other than boredom, and I talk a lot, and that's about it. I can't believe that I'm here right now. I can't believe that 6 years later I got 600 and something subscribers. I can't believe that that many people have ever come to my channel and said, sure, let me know when Spaz puts out another video. So you guys, whether you participate in stuff like this or not, always amazing. I don't say it enough, but you guys are always amazing. Going over to, speaking of the Bear Hug It Out podcast, they sent me 2 questions over on the Twitter because that's how they got a hold of me. Who I think I answered this last month, but who is your all-time favorite Survivor Series team? Now, let me be clear when I say favorite and not who I think was the greatest of all time, because I think those are 2 separate categories. My favorite will always be Team Co-Captains DX from the year that they took on Team Co-Captains Rated RKO. I don't even remember who was on RKO's team other than Edge and Randy Orton, obviously. But you had DX, the Hardys, and CM Punk. Now, if you look at that from a historical point of view, Shawn Michaels, Hall of Famer. Triple H is now running the company. The Hardys were in the thick of that miniature tag team wrestling renaissance that happened between them and the Dudleys and Edge and Christian and the APA when they decided to be part of it sometimes. And as I say, as the years go on, look at what CM Punk would go on to become. That's a dream team. And I know that sounds corny, and I don't care. That CM Punk, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, you can't really come up with a better team than that. How would you tweak the Survivor Series format to give it more consequences and rewards on an annual basis? I mentioned a while ago, I have heard the stipulations going to be added to this Survivor Series that if the Raw team wins, they get 3 draft picks from SmackDown and vice versa. I don't necessarily like that because Raw already outnumbers SmackDown. Why would they take more talent off of SmackDown? They're going to, if that is the stipulation, SmackDown's going to win. So a stipulation like that doesn't really... It makes the match predictable, which takes away from the match. If you put a stipulation on, like, the sole survivor of this match is going to get an Intercontinental title shot or a World title shot, it sort of begs the question, okay, now we know for a fact how the match is going to go, there's only going to be one survivor. Going back to my example of the Co-Captains DX team from when they took on Rated RKO, I believe they did a sweep. I believe, if I recall correctly, and I could be wrong, it's happened once or twice, I believe that team went on a clean sweep. I believe none of them ever got eliminated. So if the sole survivor is supposed to get a title shot of some kind, do the 5 of them then fight each other? Do the two sole survivors, if there's 2, get a tag team title shot? If the whole team wins, do they all pick a title they want to go after? It's very... You'd have to make it situational, and I don't think you could set it up in a way where it's every year the winner gets this. It's not simple like the Royal Rumble where there's one winner. So it has to be this group is fighting this group, and this group wants something from this group. Like the if we did the Club versus the Shield, if those 2 groups were still actually a thing, and like losers group has to disband, and for example, if you did Gallows, Anderson, and Styles versus the Shield, and the stipulation was if the Shield loses, then Ambrose has to go to Raw, Rollins has to go to SmackDown, and Roman Reigns has to go to NXT so that they can absolutely not become a team anymore. It has to be storyline driven. It has to be situation by situation based. I don't think you can, on the whole, tweak it so that here's the one fix for Survivor Series, and this is what we're doing from now on. Long-winded answer for what should have been a short question. Sorry about that, but thank you guys over at the Bear Hug It Out podcast for throwing me some questions over on the Twitter. Austin Roberts says, what's your favorite WrestleMania of all time? And of course, I'm going to be biased, and because I was there, I'm going to say WrestleMania 18. Rock versus Hogan, one of the coolest experiences I've ever had live as a wrestling fan. Take that bias out of it, and just for the basis of watching it on television, I'd say WrestleMania 17, like most other people do. Not to say that that show didn't have its faults, but it was It was as close to a perfect WrestleMania as you're going to get. It's one of those, you know, you can nitpick one or two things and bring it down to a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, but there's nothing really that... all the ones that have been in stadiums and all the ones that are the, we've made it big, therefore it's better, have all fallen a little flat. They've put main events together like Goldberg versus Lesnar, which we're trying with again. But yeah, my two answers for that, and I have to answer it in two different ways, 18 and 17. Why do you think Toronto will not host a WrestleMania? Has not hosted a WrestleMania since 2002. Do you think Toronto will host another WrestleMania again? I don't, and I sort of went through that earlier in Kay's question. We don't have a big enough venue. People will remember way back in the day when I believe it was WrestleMania. Again, you guys know I'm shitty with dates, where they had an event taking place in 3 different venues. If they wanted to do something similar to that, those of you that are not familiar with Toronto, the Rogers Centre and the Air Canada Centre are literally right across from each other. They're connected by Union Station Transit Terminal. If you wanted to fill both arenas and have events taking place in both arenas and try to recreate that, I don't think it was the greatest idea they've ever come up with. I will put that out there right now. But if you wanted to get a double crowd in 2 arenas, or maybe simulcast between Toronto and Madison Square Garden, between the 2 stadiums in Toronto and Madison Square Garden for the historical aspect, you could do something strange like that, but I don't think we're going to get an event at I can speak, I swear. I don't think we're going to get a WrestleMania in Toronto until we've got a venue big enough for Vince McMahon to bring the guys back up. I'm happy enough that we're getting Survivor Series and TakeOver Toronto, which I'm looking very forward to. I will say, I just threw it up on Twitter a little while ago, heard a little rumor, and like I said, this is going to be going up after Raw on Monday, so they may have announced it on Raw, so if they have, this is going to be kind of redundant. Ticketmaster, on Twitter and to my personal email, because I have tickets, have announced that the start time of Survivor Series has been bumped back by an hour, meaning that Survivor Series is getting the same 4-hour treatment that SummerSlam and WrestleMania have been getting the past couple years. Now, will that be good or bad? I don't know. Will that make the show better? I don't know. As, like I say, somebody that's going, somebody that's got a ticket, I'm getting 1 more hour of bang for my buck. I can't complain. Wrestling with Reality says, how would you book a feud between Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles? Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Do it very, very similar. Honestly, I would do it very similar to what he did with John Cena. Get a couple, you know, maybe supposedly, you know, fluke victories. Brag about it like it's the biggest thing in the world. The way he's using the way he's using John Cena's "I'm the face that runs the place" thing. Let him sweep up a couple more victories, a couple big legitimate victories before WrestleMania season, and like Curtis Axel had Axelmania, like Kevin Owens had KO Mania going into WrestleMania. Have AJ Styles be really ballsy and steal the title of Mr. WrestleMania, and then at the Royal Rumble, you have Shawn Michaels come out after he scoops up another victory. Let him have another victory over John Cena or whatever the case may be. Super kick from Shawn Michaels right out of the crowd right after the match is over, and that's all you need. Let them cut a couple promos between then and WrestleMania, and then just let the match speak for itself. You don't have to be really weird about it. You don't have to have like AJ Styles goes to Texas and insults Shawn Michaels' wife or some stupid thing like that. I don't know how they would do it exactly. I wouldn't sit here and say word for word what they should do, but keep it nice and simple. AJ Styles is cocky. Shawn Michaels, the wily veteran, wants to come put the young whippersnapper in his place. Which female wrestlers would you like to see in a Halloween costume, and what costume would you like to have them wear? Bit of a cop-out answer, and they're starting to do it on NXT now, but I love the Freddy Krueger gimmick that Alexa Bliss was doing in NXT, and I wouldn't change it one bit. What's my favorite scary movie? Nothing's really scary anymore, which is a big disappointing thing for me, because you guys know I've spoken about my movie collection here before. Nothing is really scary anymore, because I watch way too much fucked up shit. I will say, on the scary scale, my 2 favorite series right now, unless I go into the supernatural shit, would probably be Saw and Purge, because I have all 7 Saws and all 3 Purges, and I think they're all great in their awfulness. And the scare, you know, I can go all moral on you and be like, the scary thing about it is this is real people doing things to real people, and that means it could actually happen in real life. That's the best answer I can give you, Saw and Purge, because there's nothing out there that, like, I'm friggin', what's it called? Ouija is out in theater right now. You think I'm going to go spend money to see Ouija? Is it going to be scary? No. First of all, it's been done to death. Second of all, it's not going to be scary. I don't know. What wrestler would you like to see in a scary movie? The obvious number one answer is Bray Wyatt or anybody from the Wyatt family, but I think Paige. I think CM Punk if he came back. We know that CM Punk was supposed to be in one of the Marine movies and then got fucked out of it at the last minute for... can't think of who got the role instead. But I would love to see CM Punk in a movie. I would love to see somebody... I think Kevin Owens... oddly enough, could be good in a scary movie. He could be the asshole, he could be the antagonist, etc. What's your favorite candy to get for Halloween? Very, very simple answer. I love rockets. Thank you for those. Wrestling with Reality. Cheney815, who always has a theme to his questions, says, let's discuss something heartwarming, cheerful, and uplifting. Death! Awesome. I guess Halloween, sure, why not? Let's get through the rough one first. What if Chris had died first and then Eddie? I don't want to speculate on people's deaths. I know Eddie's death greatly affected Chris Benoit. If you hear other people talk about it, I've heard various people that have been interviewed on the Chris Jericho podcast and Chris Jericho himself speaking about it. If Eddie dying was one of the contributing factors to Benoit finally losing his shit and dying, Chris might not have died at all, and he might not have killed his family at all. Wrestling might be different right now. I don't know. That's a very weird thing, because you want to think that they'd still be wrestling, making good conscious contributions to the business, either in WWE or elsewhere. I really don't know what to say to that one. Speaking of the two, what are your thoughts on the eerie things they have in common? Not to claim any conspiracies. They're both born in 67, both champs at WrestleMania 20, supposed to be champs again had they not died, and they each died a month after their birthdays. The happy moment of them both becoming champions at WrestleMania 20 was planned, and it was planned to be a feel-good moment, so that's not exactly a coincidence. The rest of it, I mean, you can take any... No offense, Cheney, but you can take any two people that died and find things in common with... Look at the number 23, the movie The Number 23, which is another creepy movie that I can add to that list I was talking about a second ago. You can take any set of circumstances and find the number 23. Ooh, isn't that spooky? I don't think much of... I've had people mention these to me before, and it is... it's kind of one of those neat pieces of trivia to put away in your mind, but other than that, I don't really think there's anything to make of them. Who are some wrestlers that make you think, how are they not dead? The first three that come to mind, I know there's a lot from ECW. I didn't watch ECW in its prime, so I can't really speak to that. I will say Mick Foley for some of the crazy shit that he's done, and I will say Lita and Sasha Banks, because they've both done the same sort of suicide dive, come in bent on your neck and bend yourself scorpion style. How they're not dead or at least paralyzed, I gotta chalk that up to luck more than anything else. Mick Foley, I think, kind of has the cockroach effect, where he just is too stubborn to die in a lot of ways. Not that I want him to, but the shit that he's put himself through in his life, I mean, it shows now. Like when he cut his horrible promo trying to hype up the women's Hell in the Cell match that's coming up this Sunday, or by the time you guys watch this video, it will have happened last night. But some of the things he said were true. The things that, like Hell in the Cell, that he did fucked him up. The guy doesn't walk properly. He's probably grinding bone on bone. That part of his promo is probably more legitimate than we want to hear. Yeah, Mick Foley, how is he not dead? Got a smoking hot daughter, too. It's not even fair. What are your favorite... What are some of your favorite movie death scenes? Now, this is probably going to be a lot funnier than what you wanted from this, but when you said favorite death scenes, the very first thing I think about is the original Jurassic Park, when the lawyer's sitting on the toilet and gets eaten off the toilet by the T-Rex. That makes me smile a lot. Stan Lee or Betty White, who is next? That's terrible. That's obviously a comment on how many great celebrities we've lost in a very short span of the last couple of years. I don't want to see either one of them go. I don't want to speculate to either one of them dying. My only way of I'm leaning towards Stan Lee. Stan Lee, very tightly tied into all the massive, massive Marvel universe that we have going on right now between movies and Netflix and S.H.I.E.L.D. And what was the last thing Betty White did? But that's a very callous reason for me choosing who I want to die. But I'd say Betty White, only because Stan Lee's involved in a lot of the movies that I'm watching right now. if you could have a conversation with any deceased wrestling personality, who would it be? Probably Eddie Guerrero. I don't know what we would talk about, but it's one of those guys that, like, no matter how many people are interviewed about him, no matter how many biographies you see, no matter how many old interviews that he's been in, I'm sure there's more to his story than we've ever heard. And, you know, sit around, have a couple beers with the guy, you never know what kind of stories you might do. And I'm sure he's just got great wrestling stories in general. He's probably got that Jim Ross, Steve Austin, Joey Styles element to him, where if you sat him down in a long car ride, you know, tell me some stories about wrestling, you'd probably purposely make the car ride longer to hear more stories. That type of thing. Is there a wrestler that pisses you off to the point where you would lose all sympathy when they died? No. As much as I would love to come up here right now and say Naomi, Rey Mysterio, John Cena sometimes, because all the wrestling fans tend to do that these days, I'm not wishing legitimate death on anybody. I've never even really wished legitimate injury on any wrestler. I've always said to do an injury angle with somebody like a John Cena, so he can fuck off for a little bit, so that we can play up the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder bit, and he'll come back in a while, maybe be received a little bit better. But that's never that was something that was always misconstrued to me on this channel whenever I said you know, have somebody go in there and break John Cena's leg so we don't have to put up with him for 6 months. I always meant it in a kayfabe way, so I'm definitely not sentencing anybody to death. Naomi, just because she's fucking terrible in the ring, I don't want her to die. Who would the Usos fuck if she was gone? Anyways, Job Team Barry, Deceased Managers Edition. Paul Bearer, Mr. Fuji, Miss Elizabeth. Team with Miss Elizabeth, job to Paul Bearer, Barry, Mr. Fuji. Why not? Top 3 wrestling deaths that really kicked you in the nuts. I could go more historic. I could say the legends of the business, like the Roddy Pipers and the Dusty Rhodeses and all that sort of thing. But I got to be honest with you guys. Names that I've already mentioned in this video so far: Owen Hart, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit for a lot of different reasons. I mean, initially, before we knew what happened with Chris Benoit, the fact that he died, you had to receive that just as any other wrestler that had died. And at that point, it was like, here's this great technical wrestler that we've loved watching in the ring, and it sucks that he's dead. And then afterwards, you find out all the other bullshit, and it sort of taints your opinion, and it becomes this big blow to the business rather than this guy that died. But I will say Owen, Eddie, and Benoit. Number 10, and he says in big capital letters, disclaimer to all of you who have not seen The Walking Dead, Spaz, tell them to mute their videos. Now that they've muted their videos, what were your thoughts on Negan's carnage on the season premiere of The Walking Dead? I thought it was done perfectly. I thought there was a nice little swerve in there. The way they left it off the last season, if you're fully invested in the show, your stomach just sat there in a knot all summer long. And not only did it sit in a knot all summer long because you didn't know who got clobbered because they did that great camera POV at the end of the episode, but we had to put up with the shitty spin-off that is Fear the Walking Dead, which is television diarrhea at its finest. But when we came back, they built it up like this huge monumental thing. All the actors, if you saw the preamble they did the week before, like Walking Dead so far or whatever, all the actors there said what can you expect next week, and more than one of them, I think Andrew Lincoln said it, I think Norman Reedus said it, basically, you know, have a good pleasant meal with your family, have all your loved ones around you when you watch this because it's going to be rough. They made it out to be this big monumental thing, so when the first one to eat the bat was Abraham, it kind of deflated me a little bit. Not that, you know, okay, we don't like him as much, so it's okay that he died. But the losing just Abraham would not do it, would not satisfy the hype that they had put up. I had said, anybody that follows me on Facebook and Twitter, my prediction was Daryl, for a couple of reasons. You want to have a huge, gigantic, impactful thing, kill Daryl. Also, Norman Reedus working on 2 other shows for AMC, plus the 3rd Boondock Saints. I thought it was the logical thing. It would allow him to go do the other things that he's doing, and it would have the, you know, huge impact that that they wanted, that they had been leaning towards, that they had been hinting at. They didn't do that. They wrote him off by having him kidnapped, and now he's part of Negan's army, so we're not going to see him for a while. He's going to go do Boondock Saints 3, and I'm going to go buy a ticket. But they killed Glenn instead, and that is fucking great for a bunch of reasons. not only is he one of the original members of the cast, if you leave out Morgan, because Rick's initial interaction with Morgan is very, very small, and then he sort of wanders into the city, and his first introduction to any group is Glenn calling him dumbass over the intercom in the tank. Glenn is the one that, through Rick, the audience has known the longest, and it is the most impactful. It fit the bill for, you know, it's going to change the show. The better part about that is what it does for the character of Maggie, because Maggie, the cool thing about her is she has lost more family members on the show than anybody else. We've seen Rick lose Lori, who was kind of a bitch, and that wasn't really a loss. We saw him almost lose his baby and then get her back, and almost lose Carl when he got shot in the woods, and then almost lose Carl again when he got shot in the eye. But if you think about Maggie, Maggie saw all her family members that she thought were still family members in the barn all get taken out in that amazing scene where Shane busts the barn door open and they just plow down all of her family that had been hiding in the barn. Then she sees her father's leg get cut off. Then she sees her father get beheaded. Then she arrives at the hospital just after her little sister gets her brains blown out. And then she watches her fiance and the father of her child get his head turned into hamburger. And I will say, I haven't read the comics, so I don't know how they go. But if her kid is born and it's fine, I'm going to call bullshit on the show. Because she was having, you know, medical complications with the kid, whatever. She was dragged through the woods for 2 days, and then she went through standing there on her knees for a day or however long Negan had them, and then went through the absolute trauma of watching what happened to Glenn right in front of her. So, 50-50 chance they're going to write it into the story that she also loses her kid. So she's going to go fucking tech. She's going to go more crazy than Rick. She's going to be the crazy character to watch this show. That's a bunch of assumption on my part, but that's what makes sense. I loved the season premiere. I'm surprised it made it on TV. I'm surprised that they didn't push it to the 10 o'clock hour. For those of you that watch Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you know that they've pushed that up an hour so they can be a little bit more edgy in their content. Walking Dead has kept on that 9 o'clock spot since it started, I believe. They even put the shitty spin-off show in the same time slot. How they got away with some of the stuff that happened in that episode, I don't know. The fact that they teased the cutting off of Carl's arm at the end, which apparently is a spin-off of what happens in the comics, was great. I question whether or not the show can maintain the intensity that was put out in the first initial episode. That is my only concern. Anyways, thanks for answering. You know, now you know why I decided to wait until last minute. Okay, fine, fair enough. Cheney, thank you for the questions. Usual suspect, buddy, you know I appreciate you. And last, we have my sometimes co-host El Guapo, who says, question 1, how awesome is Guapo? Guapo, you're pretty awesome, buddy. You do shows with me, which means you put up with me, which means you gotta be fucking awesome. What makes Alexa Bliss the best heel and the best woman on the roster? I'm not going to say, yes, Guapo, we're both fans of Alexa Bliss. I'm not going to say that Alexa Bliss is overall the best woman on the roster. I will say she's the best heel on the roster because she gets the most genuine heat from the crowd. She cuts a decent promo, and at the same time she's got such the resting bitch face, the mannerisms, the sarcasm, the venom to her character that it's already there. She already sets the mood before she's even said anything. And as I said earlier, the way she adopts the Freddy Krueger gimmick doesn't hurt either. Great heel, underrated heel on the main roster, the same as she was an underrated heel in NXT. Hoping she's going to get the title in 2 weeks in Scotland. That's what I can say about that. Lesnar versus Goldberg, round 2. Will it be better than the first time? I'm going to say no, because I don't think people give as much of a fuck about Goldberg as they did back in the day. Goldberg is also like 50 years old now. Not expecting a technical masterclass, more expecting that Lesnar's going to get his 12-year-old win back. He's going to throw Goldberg around the ring, and WWE's going to get the marquee match that they want to sell Survivor Series. I absolutely don't think it's going to be better than the first one. In fact, I think it might be worse than the first one, if that's at all possible. Anyways, it's shitty when your camera dies right at the end of the video. Anyways, I just wanted to pop up here one more time, guys, and say thanks a lot for contributing to this series. You guys keep this series going. It's a Q&A. If there's no Q's, I can't reiterate what I said at the beginning of the video, what I say in every video. This and Tackle would be the only series that would remain if I couldn't do anything else on this channel, and that is thanks to you guys. If you're new, like I said, put some questions down in the box below. I will answer them in November, and after November, going on December break. So the questions that you leave in that Q&A won't be answered until January, and as I said, things will be a little bit different next year. To everybody, all the usual suspects and a couple of new faces, thank you. Thank you. Can't say it enough. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I'm tagging out. Bye, guys. Break like me, don't